We begin this half hour with an infamous anniversary. 80 years ago today, in the wake of the attack on Pearl Harbor, President Franklin Roosevelt signed an executive order that led to the forced relocation of more than 100,000 Japanese Americans. Their homes were seized, their businesses shuttered, and they were placed in internment camps. Many were held for nearly 3 years. It was one of the darkest chapters in U.S. history. Nancy Chen spoke with survivors who have spent a lifetime trying to move past their anguish.
Inside the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles, a reminder of where Mas Yamashita spent his childhood.
And these would be barbed wire fences, and they were a lot higher.
To keep people inside?
Oh, yes. That's me.
Yamashita was just 6 years old when he became one of the 120,000 Japanese Americans on the West Coast deemed a threat after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Rounded up by the federal government, they were sent to internment camps where most would stay until the end of World War II.
The Army provided housing and plenty of healthful, nourishing food for all.
The executive order came from President Franklin Roosevelt, signed on February 19th, 1942.
What does Executive Order 9066 symbolize to you?
It was all based on racism.
Most of those locked away were U.S. citizens, hauled off to harsh landscapes. The U.S. government built 10 internment camps, or as they called them, relocation centers.
The evacuees cooperated wholeheartedly. The many loyal among them felt that this was a sacrifice they could make in behalf of America's war effort.
The reality, say those who lived it, was far different.
The dirt was all brown, the barracks were all black, and the sky was always gray. There's no color except black, brown, and gray.
Juna Aochi Burke's parents tried to shield their family.
They felt like, what did we do wrong? We did nothing wrong. They just wanted to live a peaceful life.
They were Americans.
Right.
And this happened to Americans.
Right.
No Japanese American was ever charged for espionage, and it took the U.S. government more than 4 decades to apologize.
It was based solely on race, for these 120,000 were Americans of Japanese descent.
The people that wanted to come back to California were not allowed to. They still said no Japs allowed.
The trauma would impact generations, including Yamashita and his daughter Tracy.
I had turned my back more or less on the Japanese community for many years. And it's taken me this long to embrace it and be really proud. Because relaying the story of the immigration and the war and the camp experience has...
It's kind of helped him face some of his own demons.
And now, as fewer survivors can share their experiences, recent violence against Asian Americans has added urgency to their mission.
What is the importance of learning from history?
Not to repeat it.
A legacy and lesson, however painful, to remember. For CBS Saturday Morning, Nancy Chen, Los Angeles.
That pain still visible all these years later.
The emotion, so raw 80 years.
And the description, gray skies, cold, dark. I remember interviewing George Takei years ago, and he talked about that. It will never be erased from his memory.
They were Americans. Americans.
Yes, they were.